Assalamu alaikum everyone, this is Mohammad Sahrab and you are watching Evolve Stage Virtual Learning. How are you all? I hope that you all are fine. Dear students, in previous session we have divided cost as per their functions and we have seen that different costs are being consumed in different departments. So today we will discuss production cost in more detail. In order to understand costing, we need to have in-depth understanding of production cost because this cost is mainly associated with your profit and loss. So let's discuss production cost in more detail. So guys, for producing products we incur different types of costs in production departments. These costs consist on material cost, labor cost, and expenses. So for producing products, definitely we require raw material. And one thing that we need to understand here is that all material is not used in same quantity. We have some material that will be used in more quantity and other will be used in few quantity for producing a single product. So we divide that material into two categories. One is direct material and second is indirect material. In the same way, if now we talk about labors, we will have some labor which will directly involve in production process and other are not. So here we divide that labor into two categories. One is direct labor and then second is indirect labor. In the same way, we have some expenses which are very essential for production process, and we also divide these expenses as into two categories. One is direct expenses and other are indirect expenses. So we have some expenses which are directly involved in production process and other are not. So we divide these expenses into two categories. One is direct expense and other is indirect expense. Okay, so let's first discuss what actually direct and indirect cost mean. Guys, direct cost is the cost that can be traced in full to a saleable cost unit. So what does this mean? This means that direct cost is the cost which we can quantify how much it has been consumed in a single product. So direct cost is the cost which is the major part of the production. If it is feasible for us to measure the quantity and cost that has been consumed in a single product, then that cost of product will be called as direct cost. Okay, what I said here, let me repeat it again. If it is feasible for us to measure the quantity and cost that has been consumed in a single product, then that cost of product will be called as direct cost. That means it is the major part of cost that has been consumed during the production process. Okay, it is easily measurable and it is easily quantifiable. Okay, so let's discuss about indirect cost. What is actually indirect cost? A cost that indirectly involved in production is called as indirect cost and cannot be traced in full. That means indirect cost is the cost that indirectly involved in the production process, and for us it is impossible to measure how much it has been consumed in a single product line. Okay, in a single product, and it is not the major part of a product. Okay, so the cost which is impossible for us to measure, that cost will be called as indirect cost. So here if we talk about this chair, there are two types of cost that has been consumed in production of this chair. In producing this chair, we consume two types of cost. Like we consume some wood, and it is easy for us to measure how much wood that has been consumed in this chair. But if we talk about the glue that has been consumed in this chair, it is not possible for us to measure how much glue that has been consumed in this year. So that cost will be called as indirect cost. Okay, so let's discuss about direct costs. If it is feasible for us to measure the quantity and cost that has been consumed in a single product, then that cost of product will be called as direct cost. Okay, what I said here, let me repeat it again. If it is feasible for us to measure the quantity and cost that has been consumed in a single product, then that cost of product will be called as direct cost. That means it is the major part of cost that has been consumed during the production process. Okay, so let's discuss about indirect cost. What is actually indirect cost? A cost that indirectly involved in production is called as indirect cost and cannot be traced in full. That means indirect cost is the cost that indirectly involved in the production process, and for us it is impossible to measure how much it has been consumed in a single product line. Okay, in a single product, it is not the major part of a product. Okay? So the cost which is impossible for us to measure, that cost will be called as indirect cost. Here if we talk about this chair, there are two types of cost that has been consumed in production of this year. In producing this year, we consume two types of cost. We consume some wood, and it is easy for us to measure how much wood that has been consumed in this chair. But if we talk about the glue that has been consumed in this chair, it is not possible for us to measure how much glue that has been consumed in this year. So that cost will be called as indirect cost. Okay, so let's discuss about direct costs. What kind of direct cost we incurred in production process. We incurred these three types of direct costs during production process. So let's discuss each of these costs in more detail. So let's discuss about direct material. What is actually direct material? Direct material is material which can be directly and easily associated with a particular unit of product. Direct material is material which can be directly and easily associated with a particular unit of product or service, and it is economically feasible to trace it in the product. What actually this definition tell us about direct material? This definition tell us that material will be called as direct material which we can measure how much it has consumed in a single product. Direct material refer to those material which become integral part of the final product, and it is easy and can easily traceable to specific. So direct material will be that material that can be quantifiable and that can be measurable to a single product. Okay, so it is consistently consumed in same quantity to a single product line. Okay, it is consistently consumed in same quantity to a single product line. In the same way, if again we talk about this year, we know that the wood that has been consumed in this year, the wood will be consistently consumed in same quantity to all the products that are related to the, that we will produce in this product line. Okay, so the wood that will be consumed in this product will be consumed in same quantity if we produce other products. So this is what actually direct material is, and this is what actually direct cost is. Okay, so guys, in order to convert raw material into finished good, we definitely required human efforts, and these efforts will be called as labor cost. Okay, so we know that all labor which are working in production department are not directly associated with production process. Few are directly involved in production process, and few are. This is how, and this is why we actually divide labor cost into two costs. One is direct labor cost and another is indirect labor cost. So what is actually direct labor cost? The labor the labor wages or salary which can be directly and easily associated with a particular unit. It is easy to economically feasible to trace it in a product. Okay, so we have different labors. So the labor which directly involved in production process and their paid amount is feasible, and it is quantifiable to identify how much time and cost we have consumed in production process. Then that labor cost will be called as direct labor. Okay, so the labor who are engaged in production process and whose time can be conveniently and economically traceable to specific physical product, that labor cost will be called as direct cost. For example, if we paid wages to assembly workers, that labor cost will be called as direct labor cost. Why? Because assembly workers are directly involved in production process. Yeah, in the same way, if we paid some salaries or wages to carpenter, then that cost will be called as direct cost. Why? Because they are directly involved in production process, and the amount which we paid them, that can easily traceable to a specific production unit. So that's why their paid amount will be called as direct labor amount. Okay, direct labor cost. Okay, so another direct cost that we incurred in production department is direct expense. Those are neither direct labor or direct material, but still major expenses which are specifically incurred for the production process. Those expenses will be called as direct expenses. So the expenses which are directly, conveniently and wholly identifiable to a specific product, that those expenses will be called as direct expenses. Okay, what I said that expenses which are direct, conveniently and wholly identifiable to a single product line or single product, that those expenses will be called as direct expenses. Okay, like if we paid if we incur depreciation expense for a machine, that expense will be called as direct expense. Why? Because we incurred that expense during the production process, and it is essential expense that we must need to be incurred. Without this expense, production cannot be possible. So those expenses which are major part of production process, and without such expenses production is impossible, that expenses will be called as direct expenses. As I given you the example of depreciation, which is essential to be incurred because for producing product we require machinery and we need to consume machinery, so that consumed machinery will be called as direct expense. So now we will talk about indirect expenses. What kind of indirect expenses we actually incur during production process? As I said you earlier, that for producing products, definitely we incur different types of expenses or costs during the production process. These costs consist on material cost, labor cost, and expenses, and we divide these costs into two categories. One is direct cost and second is indirect cost. We talked about direct cost, and now we'll talk about indirect cost. Before that, we need to understand what is actually indirect cost. Indirect costs are those costs which are indirectly involved in production process, and it is not easy for us to quantify how much these costs are being incurred in production process. So the cost which cannot be measurable, and it is difficult for us to trace it how much their quantity and cost has been incurred, then these costs will be called as indirect cost. So let's discuss what kind of indirect cost we actually incurred in production process. Now if we talk about indirect material is the material which cannot be directly and easily associated with a particular unit of product and service. Okay, and it economically not feasible to trace it in the product. As I said you in the example of the production of a chair, that if we how much glue that has been consumed in this chair, the amount of glue that has been consumed in this chair, it is not possible for us to quantify it. Definitely, if it is used, how much quantity it has been used in one chair, it will not possible that it will be used in same quantity in another product. So it is not easily identifiable to a specific product. So the material which is not traceable for us to identify it in a product, that material will be called as indirect material. Okay, so it is not feasibly and it is not conveniently associated with a specific product. It cannot be conveniently be assigned to a specific physical unit. So the material which we cannot assign to a specific unit of product, that material will be called as indirect material. Let's discuss about indirect labor. What is the indirect labor mean? The labor wages or salary which is indirectly associated with a particular unit, and it is not feasible and it is not easy to economically trace it in a particular product. What actually this definition tell us? This definition tell us the labor cost which cannot be associated with a single product, and it is not economically feasible for us to trace it in a specific product. Like I said you earlier that some of the labor will be working directly to the production process and others are working in production department, but they are not directly integrated with the production process. So their time and their amount will be not included in direct labor because they are not directly involved in production process. Like if we talk about inspection officer or quality control officer, the amount which we pay them as a salary or labor, that salary will be called as indirect labor. Why? Because it is economically not feasible for us to trace how much time he have consumed on which product and how much cost we can he have incurred in which product. Okay, how much cost he have incurred in which product, how much time he have given to which product. So their cost is not directly involved, and their which is employed for the purpose of inspection, their amount will be included in indirect labor because it is not easy for us to trace how much time they have given to a specific product and how much cost they have incurred during the inspection of a single product. So their cost will be considered as indirect cost. Another perspective is that they are not directly involved in production process, that's why their paid amount will be considered as indirect labor cost. Guys, in the same way, we have two types of expenses. Some are major expenses and some are minor expenses in term of their importance in production process. So the expenses which are minor expenses and which are less important expenses in production process, such expenses will be called as indirect expenses. So let's discuss these expenses in more detail. Now if we talk about indirect expenses are those expenses which are not incurred for production process. Okay, and it is not easy for us to associate these expenses with a single product. What actually this mean? This mean that these expenses are not specifically incurred for production. If we stop production, these expenses will remain continue, so their amount cannot be associated with a single product, because these expenses will consume more in one product and less in another product. So it is difficult for us to quantify that how much expenses which were incurred in one product and how much expenses were incurred in another product. Its best example is that, or the electricity bill we paid and the insurance that we pay, the rent which we pay for the production department. These expenses will be called as indirect expenses. It was difficult for to identify how much expenses were incurred for which product, so that's why we called these expenses as indirect expense. Okay, now we will make two groups. Okay, one group for direct and second group for indirect labor. The group where we add all direct cost will be called as prime cost. Okay, these costs are directly associated with the production process. Okay, prime cost are those costs which are directly associated with the production process. Okay, and it is feasible for us to trace how much these costs are being consumed in a single product. So what is actually indirect cost, what is actually overhead, and we will make another group where we will add all indirect costs, and that group will be called as overhead. Our overhead group will be that group where we will add all indirect cost. That now we will make another group where we will add all indirect costs. So that group will be called as overhead group. Okay, so group where we will add all indirect cost, that group will be called as overhead group. Okay, so what actually overhead group consist on? Overhead group consists on indirect material, indirect labor, and indirect expenses which cannot be directly identifiable or allocatable to a single product line. Okay, we can't identify this cost, how much it has consumed in a single product. So the cost which we cannot identify, and it is difficult for us to trace it on a single product, that cost or that cost will be called as overhead cost.